Okay, so listen, we are here in our purple taxi celebrating Purple Light Up, and it's fantastic to have you,
Nice
Steve,
to be here.
from Zurich. First off, a big shout out to Virgin Media and the London Electrical Vehicle Company for making this happen today. It's Kate Nash and I, Nashville and Casey, celebrating. But listen, our first question up is, Zurich were one of our, I think you were the first in your industry to sign up with the Valuable 500.
Yeah, very proudly.
Yeah, and the Valuable 500 is all about positioning disability equally on the leadership agenda. Mm-hmm. And however, we know that the real impact comes when we join employees and leaders.
Yes.
But I am really interested to know, why did Zurich sign so quick and was such an early adopter for the Valuable 500? I mean, everybody else is following you now, but why did you start so quickly?
I think for us, the opportunity was brought to us by our network, who said we're doing some really interesting and exciting things from a disability inclusion perspective, and it's time to shout about it. It's time to give a really visible demonstration of the commitment that we want to make, and we have a really clear aim for Zurich, which is to make our organisation the most attractive place to work for the widest range of people. So for us, it was just a really great visible opportunity to show our absolute commitment to inclusion.
Yeah, I think leadership is so important. I mean, and when we launched the Valuable 500, we had Paul Poman, who's the ex-CEO of Unilever, and before then we didn't have actually a leader. Like, there wasn't leaders for it, and I want to follow up after Kate's spoken to you about just the importance of why leadership is so important. But I think, to Kate's point, now to speak about the employee network, we're the ones to actually say join the Valuable 500.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Kate, from your perspective?
Yeah, thanks, the Casey. Steve, again, we're so pleased that you've joined us today. Thank you so much, and you look fantastic in your purple tie.
Rock the purple.
Yay, bang on brand. So, Steve, as you know, Purple Space is the world's only network of disabled employee networks and resource groups, and we're seeing a real tipping point in the way in which they engage with each other and engage with their business, supporting the business to do differently and better around policies and practices and procedure, but also helping individuals to build inner confidence and inner resilience in a way that supports them to be brilliant at work.
Yeah.
We know you're doing amazing things at Zurich, and I wonder if you would help us to hear your view about why networks and resource groups are so important and what you're doing at Zurich.
Yeah, so we have a number of network and resource groups. Our disability network group is called AIM, the Accessibility Inclusion Network. They chose their name, they've chosen their branding, they've chosen what they stand for. We like to give our networks a really strong voice, and we found that it's great to do things top down, so it's fantastic, and it's really important for leaders to have a very strong voice on topics like this. But actually, sometimes the ground up is so much more convincing. I think it really is a very compelling case for people to hear to hear examples of how your organisation is changing or needs to change. And I was saying earlier that we have a phrase that we use at Zurich, which is, if you can see it, you can be it. And for me, visible role modelling is just the best demonstration of an organisation that's changing. So as a proud member of the LGBT community, I like to think that I give people a voice, and I like to think that that helps people to be who they really are. And our disability network is exactly the same. They're a fantastic, committed group of people, both people who have disabilities, visible and not visible, and allies. And for me, the power of the network comes from those who feel like their cause is very close to their heart, and their allies who want to help them to move it forward.
On that ally question, you know, Kate and I would always speak about, you know, there's this sort of scarcity model where we are nearly cutting our human diversity and inclusion groups into silos which are competing against each other.
Absolutely.
Within Zurich, are your LGBT resource group and your employees, or AIM as you call them, are they allies for each other, or is there a sense of competition? Or
so I think they are. I think more and more they're allies, and we're encouraging all of our networks to find their common voice.
Okay.
To say, because in many senses, the things that they're trying to deal with, the actual topic matter might be different. Gender inclusivity, LGBT inclusivity, disability inclusivity, and others. The actual topic might be different, But the core
concept.
challenges they're trying to fix: accessibility, openness of recruitment process, better opportunities. The core challenge they're trying to fix is the same. So we say to all of our networks, and the networks say amongst each other, don't be in competition. You're not competing for airspace. You're not competing for publicity. Find opportunities where you can absolutely work together for the better good.
I think one of the things that it struck me about Zurich is whenever we've heard you speak at a conference or an event or some of the publications that you have, you are a very inclusive by how it appears to us from the outset, or the culture seems to be where people are really invited to be who they are at work. I mean, does that come from your executive? I mean, you were saying it's important to have the employees, and I think that is important, but I think it's the combination of both that's really powerful. But where does that culture come from?
I think it comes from a combination of an executive team that truly believes in diversity and inclusivity. We often say to each other that anything to do with inclusivity has to live outside a PowerPoint deck. So the slides are fantastic. The slideshows and the creations and the Word documents are all amazing. Yeah. But what are you actually doing to make inclusivity a reality? So I think, to answer the question, I think we've got a really open executive team. Somebody said to me, a colleague said to me a couple of months ago, that the executive team that we have at the moment is the closest that group of people have ever been to our frontline employees. We spend time in all of our locations. We don't hide away in offices. In fact, in most of our locations, we don't have offices anymore. So we sit amongst the teams. We do road shows. We're out and about. We all sponsor an inclusivity network. And our AIM network actually turns some of the engagement on its head. So they came to us as part of signing up to Valuable 500. They came to us and said, we need to be at the board meeting. So our AIM network have been to 3 of our board meetings. They were with us last
Seriously?
week. Yeah, absolutely.
Yay!
That's when we see collaboration at its best, right?
And one of the things that we signed up to was bringing disability inclusivity to the boardroom.
Wonderful.
So we've not brought it through a slideshow, we've brought it through the people.
Like that is just making my heart sing. Is that making your heart
It
sing?
makes me go cold in a warm
In a nice way.
It's wonderful. It's really wonderful. Wow, Steve, I want to ask you about your thoughts about Purple Light Up. So, we learn a lot from our colleagues from other sectors, and of course we've seen through the Pride movement done a huge amount to spotlight on the talent of our LGBT plus colleagues across the world.
Yeah.
And Purple Space, this week we're launching our impact report, and we're going to describe some of the fantastic things that resource groups are doing across the world.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we're picking up is how the Purple Light Up has just captured the imagination of so many businesses and so many disabled employees across the globe. My question is, could Purple Light Up become the digital equivalent of the Pride movement? What are your thoughts? You're wearing a purple scarf, by the way.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
And where are your purple socks? You've no purple socks
No,
on.
I don't
mean,
have purple
you're
socks
like,
on.
I mean,
I'm
really?
so sorry. Next time I'm
Where's the
doing
flamboyance?
anything with you, I'll definitely be wearing. I am usually wearing very colourful socks. I do think there is a real space here and an opportunity. So if we think about things like Pride, it's, of course, the movement started, it wasn't always what we know as Pride now, was it?
Yes.
So things have grown enormously. I think there is a real space, though, for something that's different.
Yeah.
So not to try and replicate, I know you wouldn't in any sense, but if you think about the way the world is evolving, digital and innovation are at the heart of what most organisations need to get hold of to have a space in the future.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't Purple Light Up be the same?
Yeah.
And to aim in a different way to generate a movement and a passion for people.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's about the positivity.
Yeah.
Disability is so often a narrative that's around deficit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, again,
Sadness.
Yeah, it's and that's not to say that there are some real challenges.
Quite right.
That disabled people face. Purple Light Up is us, I suppose, nodding with respect to the United Nations International Day of Persons with Disabilities, 3rd of December. We're in a purple taxi. We're going around London.
In purple Muppet outfits.
But it's this positivity, and I think, you know, that's what we see from our networks. And you get that
we
too.
do, and overwhelmingly we hear from members of our AIM network who say, I didn't join this network for sympathy or for the head tilt, the kind of head tilt that comes. They joined to make a difference. And I think finding a way for the voice of any group in society, or people with any challenge in their society, finding a way for their voice to be heard in this digital world actually could be quite tricky. But there must be something.
Can I come back to the see it, you can be it? Because I came out of the disability closet 20 years ago. I'm not sure when you came out of your closet, but this whole kind of, you know, being who we are. You know, and I was saying to you earlier on that Maya Angelou's quote is, "There's no greater agony than an untold story inside us." And when you think about, like, EY did this piece of research saying 7% of our C-suite have a lived experience of disability, but only 4 out of 5 of them are hiding it. Why do you think leaders are coming out? So do you think it's because they can't see other leaders, and do you think that could change?
It's probably lots of things. So I think there probably is some of the they can't see other leaders. I don't see any reason why that can't change in the same way as being, you know, a loud advocate for gender equality. One of my colleagues who does a lot of work in networks says that I'm her favourite feminist. And I'm very proud of that label that I've had for a long time in Zurich, and very proud of that. I don't see any reason why there should be any difference in the things that you talk about yourself. Don't forget, I think it's really important to remember there's definitely human and leadership behaviour going on here. Leaders feel that they need to be infallible. It's a very competitive world, and I wonder whether that suppresses perhaps a natural instinct to share more about themselves. But I think there's nothing to fear.
But to Kate's point about celebration and looking at the, you know, the value of our colleagues who have lived experience of disability and the power, this is very empowering. Kate, have you come across that sort of narrative that might really contribute to the leaders not coming out of the closet of damage or weakness? Do you think that's something that you're finding, and therefore these networks now are completely blowing that apart?
I think it's one of the strongest roles that networks play, is that they're making it easier for us to have the conversations that we need to have with ourselves, with each other, and then how we, I suppose, articulate that to our brilliant allies. You know, disability, as we know, is a lived experience that, if pushed, the majority of people would say they prefer not to have. Now, you know, I'm a woman in my 50s, let's not tell anyone, I know we're going live on Twitter, however, and I have been around the block, edit, thank you.
Mind you, she doesn't look it like
absolutely.
Not a bit,
Makeup and mirrors, makeup, mirrors and purple. So, but it's a lived experience that can be really challenging, and we don't, you know, understand necessarily where life will unfold, and you know, it's hard. I think it's hard for people to use the language and the narrative of disability. You know, for me, it's a political definition. You know, cut me in half like a stick of rock.
And it's there.
It's there. The social model of disability. I'm a lobbyist. I'm a campaigner. I eyeball ministers for a living. So I don't get fazed by the word disability.
Same.
But as we know, it's really hard, particularly I think for individuals who acquire a disability. So
I think there's a few other really interesting kind of aspects to the whole element of inclusivity, but probably especially around disability, maybe ethnicity too, where I think people are frightened of doing or saying the wrong thing. So form analysis paralysis and do nothing. That people are really worried about saying the wrong thing to somebody. or a gesture that could be conceived the wrong way. And I think it stops an awful lot of great work being done.
So true.
The one other thing that I think is really important around inclusivity is to remember that all businesses exist because we serve a customer purpose. And one of the amazing things that our AIM network is doing is a piece of work to say, how accessible are our products and services to customers with a disability?
Couldn't be more.
And you know, that's changing the narrative.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It's the link between employees and value of the consumer. I mean,
it's the thing that keeps them at the executive table, because the my colleagues want to know whether our products and services are accessible, and whether we make life pretty difficult. When you're trying to get through verifying your identity and you have a disability. So there are so many ways that the voice can come to the table. I think you start by what it's like to be an employee around here, and you move on to what it's like to be a customer around here.
Wonderful.
And that's when you get to real advocacy.
Steve, one last question as we draw up to Baker Street. The question is, for any company that might be thinking of joining the Purple Light Up Valuable 500, what would your one message be if they've got any doubts in their minds?
I don't see any drawback. I don't see any downside to joining a movement like this, which is about making the world a safer place to be the person that you are. I don't see any downside.
Wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. Steve, you're a joy.
Thank you.
Thank you.